Hello and welcome to our Module 13 and 14 review at the beginning of our final week. Module 13, we looked at transcription techniques, and your homework specifically was to go take my dear friend Andrew Philip Ehrenzeller's recording Covenant and make a chart of it. Now, you have in the PDF attached page 34 and 35 is sort of like the answer key of how he did it. If you haven't done this yet, I urge you to stop the video, go see how far you get with it before you actually look at the chart. Try to see how far you get with it on your own, but then when you feel like you've gotten a measure of it, then go and check out what's going on with the original chart. So now I'm looking at page 34, which is the first page of the Covenant chart. One of the things I chose to do, it has that piano riff at the very beginning of it. Actually, if you really want to analyze it, the way I wrote the chart, I created sort of a common denominator of the way he did the riff, because every time he does the riff on the recording, it's a little bit different. It's not quite exactly the same every time he goes through it. So I created sort of a central average of all of those different things. But I want you to look at the first measure where it says E flat 7 sus, which means it's an E flat 7, but there's no major third in it. The major third's been moved up to a fourth. And then before that measure is over, you should see a horizontal line over the A flat. And that's something we haven't mentioned before, but the idea being that whatever chord has been going on is continuing on. It's just the bass moves to a different note. So you could almost envision that as an E flat 7 sus over A flat, but rather than writing it twice, many times we just put the slash, meaning just the bass moves. So you have 3 beats of E flat 7 sus, and then on the 4th beat, the bass moves to A flat, but the chord stays the same. Then it goes to the D flat, add 9 in the next measure, and so forth. Then you'll look on the 3rd line, band in at the sign, and it's the same chord pattern. That's why it says piano sim. Piano similarly, simile. Piano keeps doing the same kind of riff that's been going on. At the end of that 3rd line, it says open until vocal. So basically that's repeating over and over with the band in until the vocal begins and hits the verse, and so forth. So it's in A flat, and every chord that you see except for measure 12 for the first several lines is all in the key of A flat. Okay? Now the tonal center shifts at measure 12, because measure 12 we see C7 over E. Everybody see that? If you need to put your finger on it, fine, you don't have to, but you know where we are. The C7 over E is ultimately, the function of it is is setting up a different tonal center. C7 over E natural is not an A flat major scale. A flat major scale would have an E flat. Now we've got an E natural. So C7 over E is prepping the next chord, F minor. F minor is part of the A flat major scale, but because of that C7 over E, the tonal center shifts to a certain minor scale that we get into the next in the next music theory course. In this case, it happens to be F harmonic minor, of which C7 over E is part of that. So the C7 over E creates a new tonal center for a second, an F harmonic minor. Then when the actual F minor hits on measure 13, it's still F minor tonal center, but it's also conveniently the 6 of A flat and goes back. But when it goes to the second ending, it's a whole new tonal center. We've got an E chord and a B chord, which could be either the E tonal center or the B tonal center, because both of those chords fit in those scales. Then we get this other E flat at bar 17. When we hit the chorus, now we're in a completely different thing. We got E, F sharp, G sharp. Now it's a completely different tonal center. And you'll also look bar 22, bar 23, 24, 25, where you got the B chord. There you can see a real obvious, the B chord is a 1, C sharp minor is the 2 of B, D sharp minor is the 3 of B, E is the 4 of B, F sharp is the 5 of B. So you've got this walk up from the 1 up to the 5 of that tonal center. And then DSL coda means we're going to go back to measure 5, where we're back to A flat. So the tonal center shifts a few times. So we're just going to take a listen to it, and I want you to follow along, and I want you to raise your hand if you got a question or you get lost or something weird happens, and I'm going to try to guide you through with that. So here's Covenant from Andrew Philip Ehrenzeller. So this is checking your homework. If you already did this, great. If you haven't done it, then you'll get a little bit of a prep on it. Let me turn it up a little bit. One, 2, 3, 4, band in, 5, 1, 5, 4, this vocal is ad-lib, it's not the actual verse. That's why we're still there. We haven't gotten to bar 9 yet. We're still bar 5 looping around. Still looping. Can y'all hear the bass line going? 2, 5, 1, 5, 4, and now he starts singing. Here's the verse, measure 9. Now C7 over E. First ending. But listen to the harmonies. Listen to the tonal center shifting. Second ending, tonal center shift. And now the chorus, yet another shift. Here's the B, walking up, back to the sign, measure 5. And it sounds so smooth. I think if you just listen to the song by itself, you can't really tell all those little tonal center shifts are happening because they're so smooth the way he does it, and it's tied with the melody. But it's brilliant underneath what he's doing. Here's the verse again, measure 9. Third ending. Now this is the fourth time. Fourth time we're going to jump to the coda in a second, which is page 2. Coda now, page 2. Measure 33. Notice measure 33 is a double sign. We've already done a sign once before. Now we've got a different sign. First ending, repeat back to E. Second ending, we keep the G sharp chord going, but now we repeat back to E again. This is our third time. Third ending, B. Now C sharp walk up. And now he's doing the same musical thing earlier, but in a different key. 44. First ending, repeat back to 41. It's the same thing from the verse. Ya da da ya ya ya. Now check this out. Look closely. Second ending, G, D. Then it says DSS, Al double coda. DSS is back to bar 33. Fourth ending is a repeat. Back to 33. Fifth ending, we hold the G sharp and repeat. G sharp in parentheses, repeating back again, 33. Sixth ending. Now here's B, and now jump to double coda. bottom of the page. And it doesn't say double coda at the bottom. I'm just realizing that should say double coda. So from there, now you can listen to the recording at home. I chose to stop the chart at that point because that it's just the 2 pages that shows the DSS Al double coda, because we had a whole other couple of sections, and so since on the first page we had a DS and a coda, now we want to do it again, but we don't want the player to go back to the coda and DS on the first page. We wanted them to stay on the second page, so we've got a double sign and a double coda, and then he goes off and does the rest of the song. Has some of the same musical elements that are already in the song. It should say double coda there at the bottom. I apologize about that. So any questions that would spring to mind after we go through this covenant chart at all? Did everybody seem to follow the map symbols? Okay, so I urge you to go back, and if you charted it out or tried to transcribe some of it, that's awesome. Go back and try to play this, and then tear it down to the different chords and their progression, what chords are flowing into what, and identify in your head, where's home? Where is that home tonal center? Where's the home tonality? Because it shifts a lot through the song. And if your ear can go, this is the one chord, that's the bottom bass note or whatever, then as you're playing these other chords and you're going through the song, you'll start listening for the, oh, it just went up a whole step, oh, that's from the 1 to the 2, that's from the 2 to the 3, and so forth. Hearing how those things are moving in their number relationships, because this is going to start building your awareness and your ear towards hearing stuff and knowing what it is. I was hoping that this would be challenging for the average worship team member, and yet not so overcomplicated that it's completely out of most everybody's reach. There might be a few of you that'll really struggle, but for the most part, this isn't rocket science music. It's just a little bit more complex than usual. Yeah, and forgive the actual notation there at the top of the page for the piano riff. There's no other way of really writing it. I also realized once we started playing that in the very beginning of what we talked about tonight, I kept saying that it was in the A-flat tonal center, which it is when the verse begins, but all of the intros in the D-flat tonal center. And I didn't realize I'd said that wrong. I was just saying the wrong thing at the beginning of this. So the intro is all in the tonal center of D-flat. As soon as he starts singing the verse at bar 9, now it goes to an A-flat tonal center. Make sense? On the surface, maybe, just a little bit. Okay, so thus concludes really our rather shortened review of homework 13 and 14, because the 14, building the 4-note chords, we were kind of doing them on paper of the names of the different 4-note chords, the formulas, and how they interact. But Module 15 almost becomes that review, because we're going to take it the next step and put them on the keyboard and the fretboard. So stay tuned. We're going to do Module 15 in just a minute.